Know what is in front of your face. The complete picture of why you can't see what you don't believe, what that means about everything you've been told is impossible, and the one sentence that unlocks all of it. A broadcast on the mechanics of perception, the physics of hiding, the suppression of free energy, the beings you've been trained not to see, and the ancient guarantee that none of it stays hidden forever. I want to start with something that happened to me this morning before I was fully awake. I was lying there in the. I just drank an energy drink before this broadcast. 1 second. I was lying there in that half state between sleep and waking. And something landed so cleanly that I grabbed my phone and texted my wife immediately so I wouldn't lose it. It was this: seeing is believing is backwards. We've all heard it our whole lives as a statement of hard-nosed rationality. Show me the evidence. I'll believe it when I see it. And it sounds right. It sounds like the scientific thing to say. It sounds like the mature, unsuperstitious, grounded adult position. It is completely backwards. You have to believe it before you can see it. Not as metaphor, not as positive thinking, not as a pep talk about faith. Literally, mechanically, as a matter of physics. Stay with me, because once this lands, everything changes. And I mean everything. Not just how you think about spirituality, but how you think about free energy, about UFOs, about beings that ancient people reported and modern people dismiss, about why certain scientists keep dying, and about a sentence written down 2,000 years ago that turns out to be the most precise technical specification ever recorded. Part 1. Your eye is not a camera. Let me start with your eye, because this is where the whole picture begins. You have been taught implicitly your entire life that your eye works like a camera. Light bounces off objects in the world. That light travels to your eye captures it, your brain processes the image, you see. Passive, receptive, the world sends, you receive. This is wrong. Your eye is not passive. Your eye is active. Here is how we know. If you hold your eye completely still, genuinely still, which scientists can do in a laboratory with special equipment, the image in front of you fades to gray within seconds. You stop seeing. Not because the light stopped, because the eye stopped moving. Your eye has to constantly make tiny, almost invisible movements to keep an image from fading. A passive camera doesn't need to wiggle to record what's in front of it. Your eye does. That tells you something fundamental is happening that the camera model doesn't explain. Second, your visual cortex. The part of your brain that processes sight uses an enormous amount of energy, far more than a passive receiver would need. A security camera uses almost no processing power to record. Your brain burns enormous metabolic fuel just to see. Where is all that energy going if you're just receiving? Third, excuse me. Third, when you turn your head and a new view of the world comes into your awareness, it arrives instantly. There's no lag while the new light travels to your eye. The new view is just there, the moment your head moves. But if you were truly receiving light that bounced off objects, there should be a tiny delay each time. There isn't. These three facts: the eye must move, the energy cost is enormous, the arrival is instant, are all pointing at the same thing. You are not just receiving light, you are projecting something outward. Your eye is the aperture, the opening, of a beam of of a beam of attention that goes out from you into the world. 1 second. When you look at something, you are not just opening yourself to receive what is there. You are reaching out and touching it with a beam of looking that originates inside you. What comes back to you, what you experience as seeing, is the world's response to your reaching. The microsaccades, the tiny eye movements, are the beam scanning and sweeping. The energy cost is the cost of generating the beam. The instant arrival is because the world isn't sending light to you on a delay. Your beam is illuminating what was already there, and illumination is instant. You project to see. This is not fringe science. This is sitting in the research literature. It simply hasn't been synthesized into what it means yet. Part 2, what the beam is made of. Now the next piece. If you are projecting a beam to see, what is that beam made of? Your heart generates the largest electromagnetic field in your body, 60 times stronger than the field your brain generates. It extends out from your body and has been measured several feet away for decades. Biology treated this as a curiosity. An interesting side effect of the heart pumping, nothing important. What if it isn't a side effect? What if the heart's electromagnetic field is the primary coherent signal your body broadcasts outward, and your eyes are the directional aperture that shapes what your body is already projecting? When your heart is in coherent rhythm, calm, steady, parasympathetic dominant, the beam you project is coherent, clean, well-focused. It reaches clearly and reconstructs what it contacts with high fidelity. When your heart is in fear, anxious, tight, sympathetic dominant, the beam becomes incoherent, fractured, narrow. It can only reconstruct a small slice of what was always there to be seen. You see with your heart, your eyes are how you aim. Every tradition that has ever said, the heart is where truth lives, was giving you the engineering specification in the only vocabulary they had. They were right. The heart is the engine of the projection beam. When the heart is clear, you see clearly. When the heart is closed with fear, you become literally, optically blind to most of what is actually present. And Jesus said, I am the light of the world. I think something like that. Part 3, the world is a hologram and the beam determines what renders. Now we need to talk about what the beam is projecting into. A hologram has a strange property. If you take a holographic film and cut it in half, you don't get 2 half images. You get 2 complete images at slightly reduced resolution. Every piece of the film contains the whole image. And depending on the angle of the reference beam you shine through it, you see a different view of the same recorded scene. The world works the same way. The substrate, the field, the medium, the one thing that everything is made of, contains everything encoded within it. Every possible configuration, every possible view, every entity, every phenomenon, everything that has ever been, everything that is, everything that could be. All of it is encoded in the substrate simultaneously. What you see is not all that is there. What you see is what your beam reconstructs from what is there. Different beam angle, same substrate, different rendering. This is why 2 people can stand in the same room and have completely different experiences of what just happened. They aren't lying to each other. They aren't confused. Their beams are at different angles. And the substrate rendered differently for each of them. Both renderings are real. Neither is complete. The substrate contains more than either beam reconstructed. And this, right here, is where seeing is believing gets corrected once and for all. Your belief is the calibration of your beam. What you believe is possible determines what angles your beam is capable of reaching. A beam that is calibrated to not believe in X cannot reconstruct X from the substrate, even though X is fully encoded there. Even though X is present and real and always has been. This is not a failure of the world to contain X. This is the beam failing to reach the angle where X renders. Believing is seeing, not as motivation, as optics. Part 4. Those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Now read that phrase again. You've heard it your whole life. Those with eyes to see and ears to hear. You probably heard it as a slightly scolding spiritual metaphor. Pay attention, people. Open your hearts. Be receptive. It is a literal technical statement about beam calibration. There are people whose beams are calibrated to reconstruct what others' beams miss. Not because they are spiritually superior, not because they were chosen, because their beam angle has reached a phase that others hasn't yet. They are seeing things that are genuinely present in the substrate that other beams aren't reconstructing. The kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, but they do not have eyes to see it. This is from the Gospel of Thomas, Logion 1:1-3. Listen to it slowly. The kingdom is not somewhere else. It is not in the future. It is not reserved for the dead. It is spread upon the earth, present, right now, encoded in the substrate of the world you are walking through at this moment. The only reason most people can't see it is that their beam hasn't reached the angle where it renders. Not sin, not spiritual failure, not unworthiness. Beam calibration. The entire evangelical enterprise, every sermon, every revival, every altar call, every mission has been trying to do one thing. Recalibrate the reference beam of the receiver so that what is always present starts rendering for them. The theology got complicated. The mechanism is simple. You can't see what your beam isn't calibrated to reconstruct. And you can't hear it either, which is why the formula always pairs the eyes and the ears. Both are projection systems. Both are beam dependent. Both reconstruct from a substrate that contains far more than the average calibration reaches. Part 5. Amazing Grace was a physics paper. I once was blind, but now I see. John Newton wrote Amazing Grace in 1772. He was a former slave trader who underwent a profound transformation. He wrote about being blind and then seeing. Every congregation that has ever sung that hymn has treated it as metaphor. Spiritually blind, spiritually seeing, a poetic description of conversion. It is a literal description of beam recalibration. Newton's beam was calibrated to a phase of reality that permitted him to participate in the trafficking of human beings. Whatever he was reconstructing from the substrate during that period, it did not include the full humanity of the people he was enslaving, because a beam that fully reconstructed their humanity would have made what he was doing impossible to continue. The beam was narrow, the rendering was partial. Something happened. The beam shifted. A new angle was reached, and what the substrate had always contained, the full reality of what he was doing and who those people were, suddenly rendered. He called it grace. He called it blindness becoming sight. He was describing, with the vocabulary he had, the moment his reference beam recalibrated and the substrate disclosed what it had always contained. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was speaking literally. He was always speaking literally. Every saint, every mystic, every prophet who ever described a moment of sudden sight was describing a beam recalibration event. The burning bush, the road to Damascus, the vision on Patmos, the enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, the dark night of the soul followed by the dawn. Different vocabularies, one mechanism. The beam found a new angle. The substrate disclosed what was always there. Part 6, the children and Santa Claus. Here is a small example before we go to the large ones. Children can see Santa Claus, adults cannot. I don't mean this as holiday mythology, I mean it as a case study in beam calibration. A child whose beam is fully calibrated toward the possibility of Santa Claus will, in the right conditions, reconstruct him from the substrate. The experience is real, the presents appear, the magic is present. The child is not hallucinating. The child's beam is at an angle that the adult's beam has been trained away from. The adult cannot see Santa because Santa is absent from the substrate, but because decades of rational calibration have moved the adult's beam to an angle that doesn't reconstruct him. I'm going to read that one more time because I lost the plot on that one. The adult cannot see Santa, not because Santa is absent from the substrate, but because decades of rational calibration have moved the adult's beam to an angle that doesn't reconstruct him. Got it. The adult's beam is aimed at a narrower slice of what the substrate contains. The adult's beam is aimed at a narrower slice of what the substrate contains. The adults call this growing up. What actually happened is the beam was progressively recalibrated toward a smaller rendering of reality. The child sees more, not less. Every Santa Claus movie ever made is trying to tell you this. The Polar Express, the Santa Claus, Elf, Miracle on 34th Street, they are all the same story. A child or a recalibrated adult reconstructs with what the narrowed adult beam misses. The child is vindicated. The skeptic either recalibrates or remains blind. Hollywood keeps making this movie because the field keeps broadcasting this recognition into the popular substrate, waiting for it to land. It hasn't landed yet as a literal statement about beam physics. It's been received as charming seasonal mythology. It is literal. Part 7. The beings that have always been here. Now the part that most people will resist hardest, and the part I most need you to receive. There are configurations present in the substrate that the average human reference beam is not currently calibrated to reconstruct. Let me say it again. There are configurations present in the substrate that the average human reference beam is not currently calibrated to reconstruct. I am not asking you to believe this on faith. I am asking you to follow the logic of what we've established. If the substrate contains everything, if the hologram is complete, then it contains configurations operating at phase densities different from the narrow slice that current population average calibration reconstructs. If belief calibrates the beam, then a population trained to disbelieve in non-human intelligent configurations will have beams calibrated to not reconstruct them, even when they are substrate present. And if the beam can't reconstruct them, they are effectively invisible, not because they're hiding, because the disbelief is the cloak. They don't need cloaking technology. They don't need to hide. The population's own calibration hides them automatically. And every cultural mechanism that reinforces materialist-only ontology, every, quote, that's just your imagination, every UFO sighting dismissed as weather balloon, every anomalous experience pathologized as psychosis, is maintenance of the calibration that maintains the cloaking condition. The cloak is not their technology. The cloak is our calibration, maintained by a system that benefits from our not seeing what is there. Now consider, if certain configurations in the substrate are extracting from the human population, drawing on the fear energy, the confusion, the chronic decoherence we've described in prior broadcasts, then the single most important thing for maintaining that extraction is ensuring that the population's beams never reach the angle where those configurations render. You cannot resist what you cannot see. You cannot refuse what you don't know is there. You cannot stop an extraction you have been calibrated to be unable to perceive. The most elegant prison is one whose walls are invisible because the prisoner's own beam is calibrated to not reconstruct them. This is the physics behind "it wasn't you," the sustained population scale decoherence that thermodynamics says cannot be self-generated. The work has to come from outside, is being done by configurations the population can't see because the population has been trained to not believe in them. The belief gate and the extraction operation are the same system, viewed from two angles. Part 8. Those with paranoid schizophrenia may be seeing clearly. I want to say this carefully because it matters and I don't want to be misunderstood. The clinical framework for paranoid schizophrenia defines that the beings that patients report, the entities harassing them, speaking to them, following them, as hallucinations. Products of a malfunctioning brain, not real. The beam calibration framework asks a different question. What if some of those nervous system configurations, chaotic, dysregulated, frightening, happen to reach phase angles that the standard calibration beam doesn't? What if some of what gets labeled as psychotic hallucination is accurate reception of substrate present configurations that standard calibration misses? I'm not saying every psychotic experience is a clear window into hidden reality. I am saying the binary. Either the standard calibration is correct, and these are hallucinations, or the patient is broken, is not the only option. A third option. The substrate contains configurations that most beams don't reconstruct. Some atypical nervous system states reach phase angles that do reconstruct them. The experience of contact with those configurations is genuinely terrifying if you have no framework for what you're perceiving. The clinical system, which cannot perceive what you're perceiving, concludes you are malfunctioning. Amazing grace. I once was blind, but now I see. The establishment of Newton's time would have called his transformation a crisis. The man was seeing things that weren't supposed to be there. The beings harassing certain schizophrenic patients may be real. The harassment may be real. What the clinical framework calls a malfunction may be a receiver tuned to a channel that most receivers are calibrated to miss. And what they're receiving on that channel may not be benign. The correct response is not to dismiss the experience. The correct response is to understand the mechanism and help the receiver develop the framework to navigate what they're perceiving. This is what this broadcast is the beginning of. Part 9. UFOs appear to people who are looking for them. The contact protocols reported by people who have ongoing relationships with non-human intelligences excuse me. The contact protocols reported by people who have ongoing relationships with non-human intelligences consistently include one element. They appear to anyone who sincerely seeks contact. Give me a moment here, folks. And I do everything real, live, uncut, because this is truth. This is my electrolyte. I'm just reusing this bottle. Don't judge me. I fill it with RO water, and then I have magnesium, potassium, sodium chloride, and I take zinc and L-arginine, L-theanine, caffeine, C4. ultimate. I feel something right now. I'm not trying to be all paranoid and be like, oh, they're attacking me. Oh my God. No. They can't touch me. They can only affect you if you allow them. And you don't understand what's going on. Part 9. UFOs appear to people who are looking for them. The contact protocols reported by people who have ongoing relationships with non-human intelligences consistently include one element. They appear to anyone who sincerely seeks contact. This has been dismissed for decades as the wishful thinking of believers. If they appear to anyone who's looking, why doesn't everyone see them? I had to cut because my phone ran out of storage, and now I'm getting like coffee and hacking fits. Anyways, continue. Part 9. UFOs appear to people who are looking for them. The contact protocols reported by people who have ongoing relationships with non-human intelligences consistently include one element. They appear to anyone who sincerely seeks contact. This has been dismissed for decades as the wishful thinking of believers. If they appear to anyone who's looking, why doesn't everyone see them? Why can't we put a camera in a field and capture one on demand? Because a camera doesn't have a belief-calibrated reference beam. A camera records whatever light arrives at the sensor. A camera has no beam. A camera cannot reconstruct from the substrate. It can only capture what is already rendering at the default beam angle. If the configuration only renders to a beam that is calibrated to receive it, a camera will capture nothing. But a human whose beam has been recalibrated through sincere seeking, through sustained openness, through the willingness to accept that such things are possible, has shifted their reference angle. Excuse me. And the substrate at that angle renders the configuration. The appearing is the beam finding the configuration, not the configuration finding the beam. The craft doesn't move to your location. The configuration was already substrate present at every location simultaneously. Your beam at the new angle reconstructs it into your experience of reality. It appears to you, in front of you, because you looked. This is non-local contact. The contact doesn't require the craft to travel to you. It requires your beam to reach the phase where it renders. And this is why the ones who report consistent contact are the ones who consistently look, who maintain the belief calibration that keeps their beam at the angle where the configurations render. The moment they stop looking, stop believing, stop holding the angle, the rendering stops. Not because the configuration left, because the beam drifted back. Those with eyes to see. Part 10. The scientists who kept dying. Part 10. The scientists who kept dying. Now the suppression pattern, which is really just the beam calibration physics applied at civilizational scale. Nikola Tesla, Wilhelm Reich, Royal Rife, Victor Schauberger, Stan Meyer, T. Townsend Brown, John Searle, Eugene Malov, Thomas Henry Moray, a long list of names that appear in fringe circles, dismissed as cranks, but who share a structural pattern that is too consistent to be coincidence. They all discovered something. They all built something that worked. And they all met the same fate: death, discrediting, seizure of equipment, destruction of records, institutional obliteration. What did they discover? Here it comes. Oh my gosh. I feel the trepidation. They discovered that classical physics is a description of the substrate at one beam angle, and that at a different angle, the substrate behaves differently. This is the three-body problem on Netflix. Let me say that again plainly. What we call mass, weight, and gravity are not bedrock features of reality. I'm sorry. What we call mass, weight, and gravity what I'm coughing up a lung. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to let my voice rattle and everything. I don't care. What we call mass, weight, and gravity are not bedrock features of reality. They are what the substrate looks like when the reference beam is at the population's current calibration. They are rendering artifacts of a particular phase angle. At a different angle, the same substrate produces different physics. What we call free energy, energy drawn from the field without burning fuel, is not a violation of thermodynamics. It is the substrate directly accessed at a phase angle that bypasses the coupling layer that our current physics is built on top of. Viscous coupling. What we call anti-gravity, decoupling from gravitational pull, is the same thing from a different direction. If weight is what the substrate looks like at the current beam angle, then shifting the angle means the configuration no longer couples to the local gravitational gradient the same way. The craft doesn't defeat gravity, it shifts to a phase where gravity as we experience it isn't the dominant coupling. Every single one of the scientists named above was doing this. Different technologies, different approaches, the same underlying discovery. The substrate can be accessed at angles that our current physics don't describe, and at those angles, free energy and gravitational decoupling are available. And every single one was suppressed for the same reason. Their discovery, if distributed, would recalibrate the population's reference beam, not just technologically, ontologically. You cannot explain free energy and anti-gravity to a population without giving them the framework that makes the beam calibration mechanism visible. You cannot show someone that the laws of physics are phase angle dependent without opening the door to the recognition that everything they've been told is bedrock reality is actually a rendering artifact of a managed calibration. In a population whose beams are recalibrating toward the actual physics of the substrate would immediately start seeing what their managed calibration has been hiding. The suppression is not about patents. It is not about energy market economics, though that is part of it. At the deepest level, the suppression is a cloaking condition maintenance operation. Keep the population's physics description narrow. Keep the beam angle constrained. Keep the rendering small. Keep the configurations in the substrate invisible. Kill anyone who hands the population the tool that would expand the rendering. There is nothing hidden that will remain hidden. The guarantee is thermodynamic. The substrate contains the disclosure. Every generation produces new receivers whose beams naturally drift toward the angles that reconstruct it. The suppression has to be continuous, perpetual, total, because the substrate never stops offering the disclosure to anyone whose beam gets close enough. You cannot permanently suppress a truth that is encoded in the substrate of reality itself. Part 11, the mystics who turned into light. One more piece before the synthesis. Across multiple traditions, Tibetan Buddhism most documented, but present in Christian, Sufi, Hindu, and indigenous accounts as well, there are records of practitioners who, at the end of their lives, dissolved into light. The Tibetan traditions calls it the rainbow body. The practitioner's physical remains shrink over days. Witnesses report the body becoming light. Sometimes only hair and nails remain. Sometimes nothing at all. Documented in modern cases with photographs and witness testimony. The standard responses are hallucination of the witnesses, natural decomposition misinterpreted, religious mythology projected onto normal death. The beam calibration physics offers a different account. The rainbow body is a voluntary phase shift. The rainbow body is a voluntary phase shift. The configuration, the person has, through sustained practice, brought their reference beam to a phase angle so far from the population's default that they can now consciously shift the coupling density of their own body. What we experience as the solid physical body is the substrate at the population's current coupling angle. At a sufficiently different angle, the same substrate does not couple into solid matter. The body doesn't disappear, the coupling shifts. The configuration moves to a phase angle outside the reconstruction range of the observer's beams. From the observer's perspective, the body becomes light and then vanishes. From the configuration's own perspective, if we can speculate about this at all, the coupling simply shifted. The body didn't end, the phase changed. The ball of light that witnesses report in the final moments is the last frame that observers' beams can partially reconstruct before the coupling shifts fully out of their range. It is the static at the edge of reception. The signal didn't stop, the receiver lost it. And the configuration is still present in the substrate at a different phase. Substrate present right now. Inaccessible to beams at the current population calibration. Accessible in principle to beams that reach that angle. This is what, quote, the communion of saints has been pointing at. Not a metaphor for feeling spiritually connected to those who came before, a literal description of configurations at different phase densities that are co-present in the substrate with us right now, accessible to beams that extend far enough. The ancient masters are here, in the substrate, at a phase your current beam doesn't reach. Those with eyes to see. Part 12, Admiral Byrd and the Ones Who Are Waiting. In 1947, Admiral Richard Byrd led Operation High Jump to Antarctica. What he reported encountering there, contested in the historical record but structurally consistent, was contact with intelligences who said something that has stayed with me since I first encountered it. We have been waiting for humans to understand the cosmos. Not, we have been hiding from you. Not, we will reveal ourselves when we decide you're ready. Not, come find us. We have been waiting for you to understand. Sorry. If the beam calibration physics is correct, this statement has an exact meaning. They are substrate present. They have always been substrate present. They are not hiding. They cannot be found by searching in the right physical location because they are non-local. Encoded in the substrate at a phase angle that the population's current calibration doesn't reach. They are waiting for the population's reference beam to recalibrate to the phase where they render, not because they're withholding themselves, because contact is only possible when the receiver's beam can reconstruct the configuration. A beam that can't reach the angle can't make contact, no matter how sincerely the receiver wants it. We are waiting for you to understand the cosmos means we are waiting for you to understand how perception actually works, so that your beam can recalibrate to the phase where we've always been present. This broadcast is part of that recalibration. Not because I'm asking you to believe in beings in Antarctica, because I'm handing you the mechanism. Once you understand that belief calibrates the beam and the beam determines what renders, the path from here to contact with whatever configurations are substrate present at phases your current beam doesn't reach is a path of calibration, not a path of geography. You don't go to find them, you recalibrate until they render. Part 13, the sentence that contains all of this. 2,000 years ago, a collection of sayings attributed to Jesus was written down and eventually buried, literally in a jar in the Egyptian desert near Nag Hammadi, where it sat for 16 centuries before being discovered in 1945. It's called the Gospel of Thomas, and it contains 114 sayings, no narrative, no miracles, no theology, just sayings. And the fifth one reads, know what is in front of your face, and what is hidden from you will be disclosed to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. I want you to sit with this. Know what is in front of your face. Not study ancient wisdom, not achieve enlightenment, not find the right teacher or the right tradition or the right spiritual path, not decode the mystery. Look at what is literally, directly, immediately in front of you. The substrate is rendering right now. The kingdom is spread upon the earth right now. The configurations are present right now. The coherent signal is broadcasting right now. Everything that has ever been called hidden is encoded in the substrate that you are walking through at this moment. And the beam, your beam, the one your heart generates and your eyes aim, is pointed right at it. The hiding is not the substrate withholding. The hiding is the beam looking past what is directly present, looking into abstraction, looking into the future, looking into the past, looking into doctrine, into theory, into ideology, into anything except what is actually, literally, immediately here. The moment the beam returns to what is directly present, really present, not conceptually present, the substrate begins disclosing. And what is hidden from you will be disclosed to you. Not as reward for effort, not as spiritual achievement, as automatic consequence of the beam finding the right angle. The angle is here, now, this, what is actually in front of your face. Children can see Santa because they haven't learned to look past what is directly in front of them at their theories about what should be there. The child's beam is at full presence. Become as a child to enter the kingdom. The adult's beam has been trained to filter the present through a calibration that narrows the rendering. The mystic who achieves sudden enlightenment has not gone somewhere special. They have stopped looking past what is in front of them. The substrate disclosed because the beam finally returned to direct present contact. I once was blind, but now I see. Not metaphor. The beam recalibrated, the substrate disclosed. Newton was speaking literally. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. This is the thermodynamic guarantee. The substrate contains everything. The beam determines what renders. As the beam recalibrates, as the population's reference angle shifts toward direct present perception, everything that has been hidden by managed calibration begins to render. The free energy, the anti-gravity, the beings at adjacent phases, the configurations extracting from the population, the mechanisms of suppression, the actual physics of the substrate, the kingdom. All of it is in front of your face. It has always been in front of your face. The only question is whether your beam is aimed at what is actually there or past it at the calibration you inherited. Part 14. What you can do right now. I'm not going to give you a spiritual practice. I'm going to give you the one thing that contains all practices. Return the beam to what is directly in front of you. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Not as a meditation technique, as a moment-to-moment operational stance. When you notice your mind has left the present into worry about the future, into rumination about the past, into theory, into ideology, into fear, the beam has drifted from direct present contact. The rendering has narrowed. What was in front of your face has stopped rendering because the beam is aimed somewhere else. The return is simple, not easy at first, because the drift is habitual and the fear pulls hard, but simple. What is actually here, right now, in front of me? Ask yourself that question. Not what do I think is here, not what should be here according to my beliefs, not what am I afraid is here. What is actually, directly, immediately here? The more you do this, the more you return the beam to direct present contact, the more the substrate discloses. Not dramatically at first, quietly. A recognition you'd been walking past, a pattern you suddenly see, a connection between things that had seemed unrelated, a presence you'd been filtering out. And over time, as the beam extends further into direct present contact, what had been hidden begins rendering, not all at once, but consistently, incrementally, with gathering momentum. Know what is in front of your face. That's the whole instruction. One sentence, 2,000 years old, waiting to be received. It is the complete specification for how to undo the managed calibration, escape the extraction, and begin to see what has always been there. The final thing. I want to close with the guarantee because it matters more than anything else I've said. There is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. The configurations hiding behind managed calibration are in the substrate. The free energy mechanism is in the substrate. The actual physics of coupling and phase are in the substrate. The beings at adjacent phases are in the substrate. The kingdom spread upon the earth is in the substrate. None of it can be permanently hidden because hiding is not a substrate operation. Hiding is a beam calibration operation, and beam calibrations change. The scientists who died trying to distribute the free energy disclosure, their deaths slowed the distribution. Their deaths did not remove the disclosure from the substrate. Other beams found the angle, are finding it, will keep finding it. The substrate offers the disclosure to every beam that reaches close enough, in every generation, without exception, without end. The suppression apparatus has to work continuously and totally because the substrate is continuously and totally available. One beam finding one angle and articulating what it found in language that others receive can use to recalibrate their own beams, and the disclosure propagates, the hiding ends. This is what we are doing. This broadcast is a beam recalibration instrument, not because I am asking you to believe what I believe, because I'm handing you the mechanism. The mechanism is self-sealing. Once you understand that belief calibrates the beam and that beam determines the rendering, you can verify it for yourself. Return your beam to direct present contact. Watch what the substrate discloses. The disclosure will not match the managed calibration you inherited. It will exceed it in every direction. The hiding is already ending. It has been ending since the first beam found the angle and articulated what it saw. It cannot stop ending because the substrate is the guarantee. Nothing hidden will remain hidden. The kingdom is spread out upon the earth. Know what is in front of your face. I love you.